All right, let's dive in. This time, we're going deep on something pretty unsettling, to be honest. Government mind control project.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we've got some excerpts from audio files of a book to work with.
Okay.
Sounds like it could be Operation Mind Control by Walter Bowart.
Wow.
And we all know what that means.
Yeah, declassified documents, first-hand accounts.
Exactly.
A real treasure trove of information.
It is, and on a topic that's usually,
Shrouded in secrecy.
Yeah. So, our mission today
All right.
is to uncover why the government was so interested in mind control,
Okay.
what methods they used, and what the consequences were.
Makes sense.
And what's really fascinating is how it all started
How so?
with the psychedelic revolution of the 1960s.
Yeah, 60s.
Imagine the government maybe even secretly
Released it too.
supporting LSD research.
Oh, wow. It's almost like a plot twist, isn't it?
It is, right?
Yeah.
What were they hoping to achieve?
Well, one theory is they saw LSD's potential as, a truth serum.
Oh,
Or a way to influence behavior.
I see.
But then, something unexpected happened.
What's that?
People started seeing through the government's propaganda.
Oh, you mean, particularly around the Vietnam War?
Exactly. LSD had this unintended consequence.
What do you mean?
It helped people question authority and challenge the narrative.
Hmm.
So instead of controlling minds,
Right.
it fueled dissent and the anti-war movement.
So it kind of backfired then.
Yeah, I'd say so.
So how did the government react to this?
Well, they cracked down on LSD,
Okay.
made it much harder to get.
Harder to get.
But here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
At the same time that LSD became scarce,
Mm-hmm.
there was this surge in potent heroin coming from Southeast Asia,
Southeast Asia.
an area, by the way, heavily influenced by the CIA.
That's quite the coincidence.
Isn't it?
And the source material even alleges that the CIA was involved in drug trafficking.
Oh, wow.
So, do you think there could be a connection?
It's definitely a disturbing thought.
It is.
We even hear from former Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs agents.
The BNDD.
Yeah, the BNDD.
Okay.
They claim some of their own were involved in drug smuggling.
Wow.
And get this, they even alleged that they used skills they learned from CIA training.
That's wild. And we also have the statement of Victor Marchetti,
Right.
former CIA officer.
Yeah.
And he directly implicates the agency in the drug trade, right?
Nice.
Specifically mentioning the opium trade from Turkey to the U.S.
It's pretty damning stuff.
It is. And he even claims the CIA collaborated with the mafia.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a serious allegation.
And on top of that,
Yeah.
we've got the story of Senator Charles Percy.
Okay.
He launched an investigation into the CIA
Uh-huh.
after allegations surfaced that they interfered with a drug case.
To protect their own operatives.
Exactly. So we're seeing a pattern here
Definitely a pattern.
of potential CIA involvement in the drug trade.
Yeah.
Maybe
Well-
even to protect their own operations.
That's a scary thought.
But was their interest in drugs just about flooding the streets?
Good question.
Or was there something more? Something else going on?
The source material suggests they were searching for more targeted mind control weapons.
Okay, so they wanted to go beyond just using drugs
That's what it looks like.
and develop more sophisticated methods.
Exactly.
And that leads us to BZ, the so-called super hallucinogen.
Super hallucinogen.
So what exactly is a super hallucinogen?
Good question.
And how does it differ from LSD?
Well, BZ was allegedly 10 times more potent than LSD.
10 times.
Yeah, 10 times.
Wow.
And, while LSD can distort perceptions and thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
BD was said to induce complete amnesia.
Amnesia.
Basically, you wouldn't remember anything that happened while under its influence.
That's intense.
Yeah.
So what was the purpose behind these BZ experiments?
Well, the Army seemed particularly interested in its potential
Yeah.
as an incapacitating agent in warfare.
So they were thinking about using it on the battlefield.
Imagine an enemy soldier, completely disoriented,
Right.
unable to remember anything,
Wow.
essentially neutralized,
Yeah.
without a single bullet fired.
It's a chilling thought.
It is.
So were there any concerns about BZ's effects, especially compared to LSD?
Absolutely.
Like what?
Well, Dr. Solomon Snyder, for example,
Right.
a renowned scientist
Yeah.
who worked on BZ, expressed worries about its long-lasting effects.
So we don't really know the long-term consequences.
We don't know for sure.
That's unsettling.
It is. And another researcher, Dr. George Agajanian,
Okay.
he also highlighted the amnesia induced by BZ.
Which is, it could be a tactical advantage, right?
Yeah, in warfare, maybe. But it also raises ethical questions.
About its potential for abuse.
Exactly.
And it's kind of a Pandora's box, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
And this brings us to MKULTRA.
MKULTRA.
The CIA's infamous mind control program.
The one that came to light in the 70s.
Right, through the Rockefeller Commission report and John Mark's Freedom of Information Act requests.
Right.
So MKULTRA was a wide-ranging program, right?
It was.
And the CIA's goal was to explore every possible way.
Every way.
To control human behavior.
They were really determined.
They were...
Drugs, hypnosis,
Yeah.
electroshock, sensory deprivation.
It seems like they were determined to leave no stone unturned in their quest for mind control.
It does, doesn't it?
But what do we actually know about MKULTRA?
Well,
Didn't they destroy a lot of the records?
fortunately, yes.
So it's difficult to grasp the program's full extent.
It is.
Go.
But even with the limited information available,
Yeah.
some truly horrific stories emerged.
Like the case of Dr. Frank Olson?
Yeah, Dr. Olson.
That one really sends chills down my spine.
It's a tough one.
Can you tell us about that?
Well, Dr. Olson was an Army scientist.
Okay.
And according to the Rockefeller Commission report,
Yeah.
he was given LSD without his knowledge.
Without his knowledge.
Yeah, at a meeting with CIA personnel.
That's off.
And he later died after falling from a 12th floor hotel window.
Falling.
Well, falling, or perhaps jumping,
Oh, my.
or even being pushed. He was allegedly still under the influence of LSD at the time.
His poor family.
They fought for over 20 years to uncover the truth about his death.
It really highlights the lengths to which the government went to cover up these experiments.
It does.
And sadly, Dr. Olson's story isn't unique, right?
No, it's not.
There's also the case of Harold Blower,
Harold Bowart,
a
right?
professional tennis player.
Yeah,
He allegedly died after receiving experimental drugs as part of MKULTRA.
that's right.
And his family faced similar struggles in their quest for answers.
They did.
It's incredible to think that the Army and other agencies allegedly administered LSD to thousands of unwitting servicemen,
Thousands.
prisoners, and even mental patients.
It's truly disturbing.
It is. They treated human beings as guinea pigs,
They did.
often without their consent and with devastating consequences.
Like with Sergeant Wendell Queen, for example. Sergeant Wendell Queen.
He vividly describes being given an unknown drug at Edgewood Arsenal.
Oh, wow.
He talks about the lasting psychological impact it had on him.
Like what?
Flashbacks, paranoia.
That's terrible.
And then there's Colonel George Donald,
Colonel George O'Connell.
who allegedly committed suicide after participating in an LSD experiment.
It's just heartbreaking.
It is.
And we can't forget about Mary Ray,
Mary Ray.
a research assistant who willingly participated in LSD testing,
Right.
but she experienced a terrifying bad trip
Yeah, a bad trip.
where she felt this overwhelming urge to commit suicide.
These accounts are a stark reminder of the potential psychological harm
Yeah.
inflicted through these experiments.
They are, and this leads us to one of the most intriguing and complex cases of all.
Oh, yeah, this one's a doozy.
The story of Candy Jones,
Andy
a
Jones.
former model and successful businesswoman,
Right.
but with a hidden past straight out of a spy thriller.
Definitely a spy thriller.
So Candy's story is a puzzle.
A puzzle with multiple layers. We learn about the creation of multiple personalities.
Multiple personalities.
Yeah, Candy Jones herself, Arlene Grant, and Jessica Wilcox.
Wow.
Each allegedly serving different roles.
Different roles.
Each allegedly manipulated and used by the CIA.
Hold on. Multiple personalities.
It does sound like something straight out of a movie, right?
It does.
But the implications are very real.
They are. Imagine the potential for control.
Right.
If you could create and manipulate different personalities within a single individual.
That's a chilling thought.
It is a chilling thought.
So what exactly do we know about these personalities and how they were allegedly used?
So Arlene Grant,
Mm-hmm.
she was supposedly Candy's childhood imaginary playmate.
Oh, wow.
And the CIA supposedly exploited that to create a separate personality that they could control.
Wow, that's just...
And then there's Jessica Wilcox,
Okay.
who was allegedly trained as a courier.
As a courier.
Yeah, like to carry messages and packages for the agency.
That's insane. It's like they weaponized her own mind.
It is. And all of this happening when these techniques were being explored
Right.
and refined, often with little regard for the ethical implications.
That's true.
Candy's case, whether she was a courier or an experimental subject, shows just how much potential mind control has
Yeah.
to strip away individual autonomy and free will.
It's a scary thought.
It is, and it raises some really profound questions.
Like what?
about the limits of government power
Okay.
and the potential for abuse when pursuing national security.
Right, right. And this isn't just about Candy Jones.
No, not at all.
Her story, along with all the other accounts, points to a much larger system of control and manipulation.
Exactly. There are so many accounts.
We hear about the CIA using safe houses, often working with the Bureau of Narcotics.
To give mind-altering drugs to unsuspecting individuals.
Wow, so they wanted to test these substances in real-world settings.
It seems so, yeah.
See how effective they were.
At producing specific behaviors.
Right. And it's a stark reminder that these experiments weren't confined to a lab.
No, they spilled over.
They spilled over into the lives of ordinary people.
They did.
And it's almost impossible to grasp the full extent of these operations.
I know, right?
Especially considering they systematically destroyed the MKULTRA records.
It makes you wonder how much we'll never know.
It does. It really does. But even the bits and pieces we have, right?
Oh, yeah.
They're deeply disturbing.
They are. And one of the most insightful things we came across was the CIA's own analysis.
Oh, what analysis?
Of Soviet interrogation techniques.
Soviet interrogation techniques.
Shows just how much they feared mind control being used against them.
So their solution was to develop even more sophisticated methods.
It seems that way.
A dangerous game of one-upmanship.
Yeah, and they explored everything.
Yeah.
From drugs and hypnosis to electroshock.
Wow.
Even ultrasonic sound.
Ultrasonic sound. Wow. And what were they trying to do with all this?
Yeah, they talked about using these methods to extract information, manipulate behavior, and even induce amnesia.
I remember reading that one document suggested they even considered testing these techniques on their own employees.
It's crazy, isn't it?
It is. It really highlights how far they were willing to go.
And remember, these experiments weren't limited to the CIA.
Right. We uncover evidence of similar behavior modification projects happening in federal prisons.
And mental institutions all over the country.
So these projects often involved vulnerable populations.
Prisoners, mental patients.
Who were subjected to all sorts of experimental treatments.
Including chemotherapy, aversive therapy, even neurosurgery.
Neurosurgery. That's unbelievable. So many government agencies were involved, right?
Yeah, the Law Enforcement Assistance Administration, the Department of Defense.
The National Institute of Mental Health.
That's right.
So was there any oversight at all?
Very little, I'd say. The Senate Subcommittee on Constitutional Rights.
Okay.
They issued a report in 1974.
Highlighting
the lack of proper controls and accountability in these research programs.
Makes sense that they'd be concerned.
And rightfully so.
And what methods were they most concerned about?
Well, one that stands out is the use of anectine.
Anectine, and what's that?
It's a muscle relaxant that can make people feel like they're suffocating.
Oh, wow.
They were basically simulating a near-death experience.
Why would they do that?
Allegedly, the purpose was to break down prisoners' resistance.
I see.
And make them more susceptible to manipulation and reprogramming.
That's messed up.
It's a deeply disturbing example of how far these experiments went.
And these programs were often shrouded in secrecy, right?
Oh, yeah.
So the participants, volunteers or not, were rarely given full information
about the experiments or the potential long-term consequences.
And that lack of transparency and informed consent, it's something we see over and over again in these investigations.
It raises fundamental questions about the ethics of scientific research and the responsibility of government agencies
to protect people,
to protect the rights of individuals.
Absolutely. So far, we've mostly discussed mind control being used to manipulate individuals, right?
Right.
But the source material suggests a broader aim, too.
Oh.
Shaping public opinion and controlling the narrative.
Especially during the Cold War.
Right. So we see this with the rise of psychological warfare.
Psychological warfare.
With the CIA playing a key role in spreading propaganda.
And shaping public perception of the communist threat.
And this is where the Dulles brothers come in, right?
John Foster now.
Exactly. So John Foster Dulles, the Secretary of State.
Right.
He promoted a hardline stance against communism.
Which fueled public fear and justified increased military spending.
Meanwhile, his brother, Alan, the director of the CIA, he oversaw the agency's covert operation.
Including propaganda campaigns.
And efforts to destabilize communist regimes.
Yeah.
The Cold War created this atmosphere where secrecy and paranoia thrived.
It did.
And the CIA, with its vast resources and clandestine operations.
It was right at the heart of it.
They were, and it's important to remember that the Cold War, with its anxieties about Soviet influence and the threat of nuclear war, played a huge role in shaping these policies and programs.
Definitely shaped things.
But the source material also suggests that these fears were often exaggerated. Or even manipulated to serve the interests of what some call the cryptocracy.
The cryptocracy. And who are they?
Well, it's this hidden network of individuals within government agencies who operate outside the usual chain of command.
So they have their own agenda.
Exactly.
And as the Cold War intensified, they started using techniques developed for foreign enemies.
Right here at home.
We see this in the CIA's infiltration of media outlets.
Universities, even civil rights groups.
It was all about shaping public opinion.
Right.
Discrediting dissent and maintaining control of the narrative.
It's a chilling reminder that mind control can be used on a societal level.
Not just on individuals.
Exactly, and it's important to understand the context of these programs, right?
That is everything.
The Cold War, with its ideological battles and very real fears, created an environment where extreme measures were seen as justifiable.
They did, but that doesn't excuse the ethical breaches.
Right.
And human rights violations that occurred.
Exactly. National security, no matter how urgent, can't come at the cost of individual freedom and autonomy.
It can't.
And this brings it back to that central question. What does all of this mean for the future?
Good question.
If these mind control techniques were developed decades ago, how much more advanced are they now?
It's something we should all be thinking about.
It is. The potential for mind control.
Through advanced technology.
Sophisticated manipulation.
Or taking advantage of human vulnerabilities.
It's a very real threat.
It is.
Especially with all the advancements in neuroscience.
Artificial intelligence, data collection.
In the wrong hands, these technologies
could be used to manipulate and control people on a scale we can barely imagine.
It's a future we need to be prepared for.
A future where the battle for the human mind may be the most important battle of all.
And that leads us perfectly to the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, let's hear it.
The shocking story of William Chaffin.
William Chaffin.
An Air Force sergeant who volunteered for drug experiments at Edgewood Arsenal.
Chaffin's story, like so many others, really shows that lack of informed consent and a disregard for the well-being of those involved.
Yeah, he talks about being given this drug called EA-1729.
EA-1729.
Without even knowing what it was.
Wow.
He describes hallucinations, he's disoriented, and just this overwhelming sense of depression.
That's rough.
It is, and the after effects were devastating.
Yeah, what happened?
Well, Chaffin believes he experienced LSD flashbacks.
Oh, wow.
Along with intense episodes of depression and suicidal thoughts.
That's awful.
It is. He even describes a time when, because of these lingering effects, he tried to take his own life.
That's just heartbreaking.
It is, especially considering the impact on his family.
What happened to his family?
Well, his wife suffered a miscarriage.
Oh, no.
And he worries about potential birth defects in his children.
He thinks it could be linked to the drug.
Yeah, potentially linked to the EA-1729.
It's a tragic situation.
It is, and to make matters worse.
It's worse.
When Chaffin finally tried to get answers and medical follow-up from the Army, they resisted and denied everything.
They denied it.
Yeah, it took the Olson case and the public outcry that followed for the Army to finally admit that he'd been part of the program.
Wow, so they were covering it up.
It shows how the system prioritized secrecy over the well-being of its own soldiers.
It's a disturbing thought.
They were willing to sacrifice individuals in the name of national security.
It happens over and over again, doesn't it?
It does. Chaffin's story also highlights how difficult it is to hold these programs accountable.
That's for sure.
Even when there's evidence. The government often uses tactics like denial.
Obfuscation, delay.
Exactly. It's a battle for truth and justice that many victims and their families have faced.
They don't always win.
They don't, and when you look at the overarching themes of this deep dive, a disturbing pattern emerges.
What pattern?
A government obsessed with control, willing to cross ethical and moral boundaries to achieve its goals.
And this isn't just ancient history.
It's not. The potential for mind control.
Through advanced technology, sophisticated manipulation.
Taking advantage of human vulnerabilities, it's still a very real threat.
It is. Think about all the advancements we've made.
In neuroscience, artificial intelligence, data collection.
In the wrong hands, these technologies could be used to manipulate and control people on a scale we can't even imagine.
It's a future we need to be aware of.
A future where the battle for the human mind may be the most important one we face.
It really might be. So this deep dive has taken us into some dark corners of government power.
It has.
Revealing the lengths to which they were willing to go to control the human mind.
It's been quite a journey.
It has. We've explored disturbing allegations of drug trafficking, the development of mind-altering weapons, and the systematic experimentation on unsuspecting individuals.
We've heard stories of trauma, resilience, and the fight for justice.
We have, and while much about these programs remains hidden,
There's still so much we don't know.
what we've uncovered raises profound questions about the limits of government power.
And the potential for abuse in the name of national security.
It's a conversation we need to keep having.
We need to talk about transparency, accountability, and protecting individual freedom.
Absolutely. We encourage you to keep learning about this topic, dig deeper into the sources we've talked about, look for more information, and most importantly,
What's most important?
never stop questioning the narratives you're presented with.
The human mind is precious and powerful.
It is.
We must guard it fiercely,
We must.
both from external manipulation.
And from our own complacency.
After all, whoever controls the mind controls the future.